I'm going to leave a space out in front of that one. I'm going to leave a space after this one. Oh, this is a good question. It's a good question because sometimes you get into the habit of noticing that I can get a common denominator, right? Like if this is an 8 and this is a 6, I can get a common denominator by multiplying the first one by 6 and the last one by 8. Then I would get 48 as a common denominator. But in this example, that's not the lowest common denominator. And if you don't do the lowest common denominator, it's not wrong, but you're going to have more work later. So first, I'm going to do it as if you were like, oh, I was really smart. I realized right away the lowest common denominator between 8 and 6 is 24, not 48. So if I notice that this one, I'd have to multiply this by 3 and 3, and this one by 4 and 4. Then I look at my variables. I have an x squared there and x, so I need an extra x in the first one in order to have it match up. So what do I get? I get a common denominator of 24x squared and 24x squared. And on the top, another thing. Oh, this 3x gets multiplied by the whole thing on the top. One of the things you've seen me do is when you're adding and subtracting, you've seen me put brackets around things. As a reminder, I can't cancel out those x's because I'm not multiplying. That x plus 5 is one factor. This is also important here because when you multiply by 3x, the 3x is going to multiply the x and the 3x is going to multiply the 5. The 4 is going to multiply the 7 and the 4 is going to multiply the x. So we have to distribute here, which will give me in my first fraction 3x squared plus 15x. And in my second fraction, 4x minus 28. And if you want, right, you can put brackets around these, like, so you don't get tempted to cancel things out. Now, adding fractions, we get our common denominator, which is 24x squared. And if I add the tops, I have some like terms here. I'm going to have a 3x squared, that's all by itself, but 15x plus 4x will be plus 19x, and then I have a minus 28. Again, this whole thing is grouped together now, because it's connected with adding and subtracting. And unless we can factor out a common factor, which we can't, or an x, which we can't, there's nothing that would be able to simplify here. And of course, the textbook tells us the non-permissible value that x can't equal 0. Now I'm going to draw a line right here. I'm going to do this question again and show you what would happen if you didn't recognize the lowest common denominator and just sort of went with your go-to. I'm going to multiply the 8 by 6 and the 6 by 8. It's not wrong, but it's going to take us a little bit more work to get the right answer, and I just want you to show you that, because it's going to happen to you sometimes. Sometimes you're going to miss a lowest common denominator, and it's not bad, it's just a little bit more work. So what would that look like? I'm going to rewrite the question. We still have x plus 5 over 8x plus x minus 7 over 6x squared. I still am going to put this in brackets and this in brackets. But here, instead of seeing the 24, I just decided I'm going to multiply this by 6, and this one by 8 and 8. And this one needs an x, and this one needs an x. It looks good. It was simple. I didn't have to think very much. And I got 48x squared here, and I got 48x squared here. And just like before, I'm going to have to distribute. So this will be 6x squared plus 30x. And this will be 8x minus 56. Brackets around this one and brackets around that one. I have a common denominator of 48x squared. And 6x squared doesn't have any like terms, but 30x and 8x would be 38x and minus 56. So we have the danger here is if you stop now, I would take off marks because it's not simplified completely. Took us the same amount of work to get to this part. The left is the right answer. What's wrong on the right-hand side? Well, there is, between 6 and 38 and 56, there is a common factor of 2. I could factor that 2 out. And now I'm multiplying. So if I'm multiplying, I can simplify. I'm going to take out my purple pen. I can simplify 2 and 48 would reduce to 1 and 24. And then what would I now have? Well, the bottom is now 24x squared. And since that is just a 1, I'm just left with 3x squared plus 19x minus 28. So this would still get you full marks. But you notice it took 2 extra lines of work. Not wrong, right? If you do more math work, I don't deduct you for not coming up with the quickest method of showing your work. But if you did a lot of these, you'd kind of get annoyed with yourself if you always had to write more stuff, right? So a little bit of thinking early on often can save you work later. And that's true in any math question. Right? As soon as you get complacent and just start doing steps without thinking about it, you might be missing something that could make it easier for you later on. So whenever we're doing a math question, I'd say, think about the steps all the way through. Does this make sense? Is there a better way? Is there another way? And if you sort of develop that habit while you're doing your math homework, you're going to find yourself having to study less because you're thinking more while you're doing your math. And that builds all sorts of brain connections that will help you later on. Okay, well now we can go to part B on this one. And 3c minus 2, I'll leave some space in front. 3c minus 2 over 3cd minus, and c plus 8 over 5c squared d. Correct. Yeah. So again, 3 and 5. Lowest common denominator, 15. So this one is going to need to be multiplied by 5 and 5, and this one by 3 and 3. Variables. This one has a c squared, this one has a c, so we need a c here. They both have a d. So this looks like that will get me a common denominator. I'm just going to double check. Here I would have 15c squared d, and here I would have 15c squared d. Again, I put brackets around these because that gets grouped together because it's adding and subtracting, right? Tempted, those 3 c's, oh, they'll do that to you. They'll put something really tempting at the front to be like, don't you want to cancel those out? Wouldn't that be nice? Don't make those Star Wars sounds, so much fun. Right? No, not allowed, because that is grouped together. And that's also important because we have to distribute. That 3 would get multiplied by both of those things. The 5c gets multiplied by both of those things, which will give me 15c squared minus 10c and 3c plus 24. And again, this is now grouped together, this is grouped together. We have a common denominator, so we're going to get 15c squared d. Now, there is a very common mistake that students make in the next step. I'm going to make the mistake. Don't write it down. I'm going to change my pen to red. What is in red is wrong. And you have to see if you can figure out what I did wrong. Don't blurt it out. If you don't see what I did wrong, guaranteed you will make that mistake then. Does that make sense? It's like, it looks right to me. Because then you're gonna make that mistake. So here is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna look here. I've got just one 15c squared, so I'm gonna write 15c squared. I have a minus 10c, minus 3c. Those are like terms. I can put them together, minus 13c, and then I have the 24. There we go. And that is wrong. Don't say out loud if you see it. Wait, let everybody have a look. Because it is such a common mistake. It's so easy to make. Sometimes you see what's wrong, right? You can check the bottom of you can't see what's wrong. You're like, what is the mistake? You can look at the bottom of the page and see what the right answer is. And then you're like, why is it that? See if you can figure it out. Okay? So, I'm going to show you the right answer. If you figured it out, you can give yourself a little fist bump beside. What should it have been? Well, we'll erase this. Actually, the 15c squared was fine. And the minus 13c was good, but it should have been minus 24. And what happens, and this is why adding the brackets is really important, because this is subtracting this whole fraction means you are subtracting this and you are subtracting the 24. But if you forget those brackets there, or you don't even have to write the brackets, but if you forget you're subtracting the whole thing, it's very easy to write that plus 24 at the end. Subtracting, you might remember this from like grade 9, you had subtracting questions. Or we had some subtracting questions earlier this year too, where you have to remember to distribute that negative. It's super easy to forget. And of course the textbook has listed that secant equals 0 and tcant equals 0. But you can also circle questions 6, 7, and 8, and I'm going to give you some time to work on those right now.